What up, my dudes? It's been a while. It's been about a year or so since I made a video, but here we are, we're back. I bought, indeed, the cheapest Corvette in Japan. Came from auction, and it is by far the worst car I've ever owned. So you may ask, Tanner, why do you say it's the worst car you've ever owned? Well, I'll jump into that here in a sec. Actually, before we dive into that, you may ask, like, why a Corvette? Why a Corvette in Japan, especially? I don't know. I thought it'd be cool, you know, from being an American and traveling back to the States. You see tons of skylines. Everyone's super hyped to see a skyline. I thought, let's do the reverse, right? So anyways, I went to a track out in the US and I saw these cars sliding around out the box. Fantastic package for what you get for the cost, right? And with the increased price in like Silvias, S chassis, JZX100, Skylines, whatever else, I was like, what's the best bang for your buck car that I can buy in Japan? And for the longest time, I wanted a C5 Corvette. So that was what I was kind of chasing. And I'd look at auctions. Every single one of them was an automatic. I was looking for 6 or 7 months at the auctions. Not a single car that wasn't a Z06 popped up and was manual. Until this one. And keep in mind, since I've owned it, it's been about a year since I've had this car. So I've done a few things here and there. You see the livery by close calls and whatever else. But when I bought this thing, it was like 2.5 million yen, right? And that's like this much dollar, put that on the screen. Right, for at that price, that's cheap, right? You're getting a 6-speed, you're getting an LS platform. So I was like, that's rad, that's cheap, let's go for that, right? So it was like 2.5 mil. I kind of was holding off. I was like, let's just see if it goes down. It was at auction for like several weeks, progressively getting cheaper and cheaper. And then I threw a bid for 2 million yen. Like at the time, that was, I think, 13,000, 14,000 USD, which is dirt cheap for the performance that you get out of a C6. And this has 96,000 kilometers, which is just under 60,000 miles, which is not a lot for an LS, right? So I bought it. I put a bid on it, and I ended up winning it. And I was like super stoked. I got this C6 Corvette until it arrived, and then I realized that I'd made a massive mistake. Looking at the sheet, you see it's a grade 4, interior B. I mean, there's some minor scratches, dings, marks, whatever else, but you know, you see that and you think, okay, well, it should be in good condition. Anytime someone's gonna go out of their way to own an American car in Japan, they should probably take care of it. That's at least kind of the standard, right? And when I got this thing, I didn't really take a lot of videos. I might have some, and if I do, I'll put them on screen. But this whole engine bay, when you open this, I mean, it's clean now, but it was covered in rat feces. It was absolutely disgusting. So when you have rats or mice inside your engine bay, what does that mean? Well, it means a headache of electrical problems, and that's just what we've had, paired with the fact that, and some may or may not know, but these cars have 2 fuel tanks. There's one on the driver's side, there's one on the passenger side, and there's a crossover tube that goes in between. Your fuel pump is on the driver's side. Your fuel sending unit is on the passenger side. When I got this car, it reeked of gasoline, right? So it's okay, the crossover rings, like the O-rings on there, proper shot. Check engine light on, all these types of things, right? And one of the biggest headaches is that the fuel gauge doesn't read for a damn. It doesn't matter how much fuel you put in or take out, it will always read either full or over full. And so I've changed the fuel pressure sensor, the fuel, like everything related to fuel, I put new components in and it still does not, even like the levels, right? The sending levels, the leveling unit or whatever, right? All of that's been changed. It still doesn't want to work. I don't know why. We've dropped the tanks now 3 times, which is a complete pain. I'm not super mechanically inclined. So I've had a shop do it. Finding a shop in Japan to work on these cars is hard enough. And it just adds up and adds up and adds up. So what am I getting at? Long story short is I bought a lemon by buying the cheapest Corvette in Japan. It's been about a year and now it's doing well. It drives, it's fixed, it has shock, it has plates, whatever else. But there's still a ton of things that are like wonky, GM, weirdness that I don't really know how to address, right? I'll show you one right now. All right, so we want to turn on the car. Let's do that. You press the button. Sounds great. All that freedom you can hear, you know? Sounds amazing, all right? You want to turn off your car, you simply just turn it off. All right, but now what do you have to do? You have to shift to reverse to be able to turn off the accessory, to turn off the car so it doesn't die. This was something that GM addressed on their 2005 models. If you buy a 2005 Corvette in the US, you have this issue. You have to put the car into reverse to be able to turn it off completely, right? It's off. GM was like, oh, that's, you know, well, the people that bought this in 2005, they complain that, hey, I come to my car the next day, it's dead. Why not? Well, all the boomers didn't know that you had to put it into reverse and the car would just die. So GM's like, yeah, that's kind of a dumb system, or let's not do that. So 2006 onward in the US, all of those cars have had that issue addressed. What's weird is that the Japanese and European delivered Corvettes are different than the US ones in a lot of different ways. It doesn't matter what year you buy, you'll always have this issue where you have to put the car in reverse to turn it off. Not, you know, something that's a huge issue, but it is kind of an annoyance. You have inside here what's called your RC-DLR, which is your receiver. Anytime you want to use your key fob to use your car, which these cars are already notorious for, like, not wanting to start if there's any type of interference, you know. You put your phone in the glove box and the keys right there and it still won't start. It'll say no fob detected. I had that issue for 8 months where I couldn't get this car started. It literally just wouldn't start. It would just click, 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 which ended up being the RC-DLR, which you think, okay, just buy a replacement part. Well, no, because the Japanese cars and the European spec ones run on 433 hertz, whereas the US cars are 315. Weird little tidbit, but it just made everything about this. It's been hard to get parts. There's been stuff that I can't even search on forums because the US and the European spec cars were delivered differently to have all these different quirks, right? Some cosmetic differences, like, which I guess doesn't really matter, but the taillights are different. The Euro specs have this little amber bit on the bottom here, and they also have this like bumper it's not a windshield, but a washer unit that like pops out and can wash your headlights. Overall, absolutely fantastic car to own and drive. I love it when it works, but to get it to this point has been an absolute headache. So just running over the specs again, this is an 07, so it's an LS2. You can say, well, why didn't you get the LS3? Beggars can't be choosers. This popped up and I thought it was a good deal. Was it? That's debatable. How much money has been put into the car so far to get it actually running and driving, but I guess we'll see, you know? All right, so where do we go from here, and what's the purpose of this car, and why should you care, right? Well, the end game of this is to turn it into something that can drift in Japan, right? I can't drift, but I want to drift. That seems pretty cool. And you never see these in Japan drifting, right? So that's the goal of this car. So what we've done so far is we have a mini Mantis kit on the front. We have Part Shop Max steering column lock, and a few other little bits. So where are we now? If you've made it this far into the video, we are at a car event. So we're gonna head inside and show you that stuff. So let's go check it out. All right, so we're at the Ep.1 event here in Numazu. So you have all your major makers, Kazama Auto, Final Connection, HPI, D-Max, Tomei, etc., etc. So just walk around and check out some of the cars here. This is a car that Ep.1 built. So this is their track spec. I don't really think it does much competition anymore, but it is a 1J in an S15. This venue is just one hall big, so there's not a huge amount of stuff packed in here, but I'll do a quick walk around. This video is again mostly for the Corvette and the future plans for the Corvette. So I'll post as I go and as that car gets like progressively better, and hopefully get some track days going to learn how to drive. You have the ST Garage comp car, which I don't think, it doesn't do any actual events anymore because it's out of spec or out of compliance. I've talked to the guys at ST Garage and been like, you know, why don't you drive this anymore. They're like, well, just to get it back to spec to be able to compete in like D1 lights and whatnot is just too expensive. And I don't think they have a driver anymore either. So it's kind of a relic of its time now, just to be put in shows. But this thing was pretty rad back in the day. We have a 2J powered 13. Again, with some kind of old tech. What is this? Old Greddy turbo. Looks rad. I think I saw this yesterday. It had a bunch of like drag stickers on it, so. Yeah. It's been busy. Last time was what, 2022? So it's been a few years. I saw this. This is a President. I don't know if I gotta censor that, but just check it out while I walk past. Again, 2J. We have a Daihatsu Copen with a Porsche front. So it's a Copen Porsche, huh? That's actually done really well. Alright, so I came back to this Daihatsu Porsche build, right? And off the rip, you're like, okay, these are like Porsche headlights or something, but they're not. They're actually from a car called a Daihatsu Cast. And the sizing is just enough to make it look like this. I guess it took them somewhat like 9 months from start to finish. It's not a kit, it's just like a one-off. But yeah, those aren't Porsche headlights. Those are off a Daihatsu Cast, which is pretty cool. Final connection with their new 8.6. They just released these brake calipers and pads, big brake kit, which is pretty rad. Front and rear for all different types of makes, cars and makers and whatever else. You see it right here. And that's not a bad price. It's like what, $1,400 US or something for front 6-pot and rear 4-pot. Not too shabby. Garage Very, primarily makers of Mazda parts. So if you have an NA or an NB Roadster, you've probably seen their stuff before. They're pretty popular. They had this car at Auto Salon, I think this year, with a color change, but this is their full aero kit. And it looks pretty rad. They have a lot of aero parts for a lot of stuff that doesn't have aero parts. So again, Garage Very, check out their stuff. Newest from Garage Very, we have the FL5 aero parts. So if you have a Type R or just an FL5 in general, check out their website. Wings, side skirts, all types of stuff. And although shipping across the sea is rather expensive, it's not impossible. Leave a comment or something if you're interested. There's plenty of car shops that do it, but there are. Nothing on display here, but that looks nice. Right next to Garage Very, we have HKS. I guess it only makes sense for them to come out because they're based out of Fujinomiya here in Shizuoka, so it's not that far, right? But taking a closer look at this thing, I realized that there's like nothing there. Look at that. Look at that. There's literally just like nothing there, you know? 2J, I don't know how many liters this is, probably 3.1, 3.4 something, right? When you have your exhaust that exits out, there's nothing there. How crazy is that? And I guess in standard drift car fashion, right, you have all of your radiator and cooling in the back. Look at that. I know this is like standard, right? But it's still just crazy to see how there's nothing in these cars. Alright, I think that just about wraps up everything here. You have, you know, all the makers that you would see at like Auto Salon, Yuraz, Final Connection. You can have like Top Rank here. There's Nomuken, Origin, etc. I was talking to the guys from work because I think having a pair of these on the Corvette would be super rad. They say that they can make them in a PCD 120.65, but I don't know, I think it'd be easier to have them in 114.3. I have adapters from Part Shop Max. It just kind of figuring out the offset, because everything, without like the Z06 or Z01 style fenders and stuff, everything wants to poke out. And that wouldn't be an issue in the US. You could, have 20 millimeters, 30 millimeters of like your wheel protruding past the fender, but here in Japan, that's kind of a no-no. You can add some camber, etc., but I don't feel like getting into any trouble with the policeman of just driving this car through town, so, and it's an issue for Shuckin'. So I think what we'll do is we'll check out the pamphlet here and see what sizes they have. I think this is probably the next step amongst fixing all the other issues with the car, which we can go in depth maybe next video. That'd be super rad. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm going to try and post more frequently this type of stuff of just car events and work on the Corvette in Japan. Cool stuff. So if you like this type of stuff, like, subscribe, do whatever else. And thanks for watching, my dudes.